What's going on, everybody? Dave Stutts here, bringing you Intro to MIDI Controllers Part 3. In Part 1, we defined what a MIDI controller was. In Part 2, we configured our MIDI controller both inside the controller and in our DAW. And in Part 3, we're finally going to start pressing these buttons and see what they do. Let's get into it. So here we are, back again in Logic Pro X. I've pulled up our opening theme, which I wrote just for the Intro to MIDI Controllers series. I've got 10 tracks here divided between 2 folders, and I've turned them all down so that we can start mixing as we go. So just like in our DAW up here, on my MIDI controller, I have what are called transport controls. So for instance, I can hit the loop button, and that'll set a predefined loop area that I put from measures 1 through 4. And I can turn it on and off. I can hit play. I can stop it with the stop button. I can use these rewind and fast forward buttons to slowly move throughout the project, or I can use my scroll knob right in the middle of the MIDI controller to move much more quickly. And then whenever I'm ready to record, I can simply hit record. And then stop when I'm done. So I never have to touch the mouse. I can do all that right from the MIDI controller. So I have my track selection buttons here, and I can choose any one of these tracks in order that I want. And then I have these buttons on the side here if I want to shift which groupings of tracks I'm looking at. So again, I never have to touch my mouse. I can do it all here from the MIDI controller. Get the idea. I can mix everything right here from my MIDI controller. I don't need to point and click or do anything like that. In fact, as you can see, I already had some panning built in here. I can do that from the MIDI controller as well. Now I'm going to come up here to my DAW command controls, and I'm going to click solo and press play. So as you can see, the encoders automatically work the panning when I'm set in DAW mode on the Arturia Keylab 88. So let's see what else these DAW commands can do for us. I've got a record button here that lets me arm the track and prepare it to record. I have an auto punch button. So if I hit that, I can set a parameter here of where I want it to allow me to punch in once the recording starts. I'll set it for right there. And now I have a new little groove. And let's say I hated that. There's the undo button. And it all goes away. I can solo a track. I can mute a track. I can set the track to read or write, which we'll get into in the next video. I can even turn the metronome on and off, which is super convenient. And then finally, if I think it's good, I can click the save button. And it saves my track for me right here on the MIDI controller. There's also a dedicated replace button. So whatever track I've selected, if I hit replace and I press record, whether I play anything on the MIDI controller or not, wherever the playhead crosses over, that's going to be deleted or recorded over. So for example, and as you can see, it disappeared. So I'm going to click undo and bring it back. So the pitch wheel is very self-explanatory. Pitch goes up, pitch goes down. And now the mod wheel. The mod wheel is a little more interesting. It's kind of like the expression pedal from the last video. It's just another way to control certain MIDI parameters. So in this case, my mod wheel naturally goes to the cutoff, just like our expression pedal did. So instead of using my foot, if you don't have an expression pedal right away, your mod wheel will probably take over for you immediately, automatically. If you use both wheels at the same time, it can have a pretty crazy effect. Now the octave buttons come pretty standard on every MIDI controller I've ever seen. It allows you to move the current position of the keyboard, the part of the keys that you're playing, either up an octave or down an octave. So for instance, if I'm playing C4 here, I can hit plus octave. All while staying on the same key. Very convenient. Now, moving on to the percussion pads. These are typically for percussion instruments to allow you to play beats and rhythms much more easily than on a keyboard. So I'm in Battery and I pulled up Corner Store Kit and it sounds like this. And one of my favorite things in Battery is that sometimes you'll pull up a kit and it just has so many sounds and options to choose from. But sometimes people build kits around how many pads are on a MIDI controller. So for instance, this has 16 pads, 4x4. And then here in Battery, you'll see that this also has 16 pads and it correlates exactly. I always know what sound I'm gonna hit because I can see it in Battery. And in fact, if I find it a little awkward on the pads, I can move these around. I'll put the snare right here and the hi-hat over here, the open hi-hat right underneath it, and then I can just play it like this now. Pretty cool. Well, that's it for part 3. In part 4, we're going to take these knobs and faders that we've been using very much at face value, and we're going to get more creative with them so that we can make more human and lifelike music. So until then, I'm Dave Stutts, and I'll see you next time.